Our history demands that we should improve the education system and develop the skills that we need on how we move into the future. Thirdly, we are duty-bound to improve the conditions of the life of South Africans, especially poor South Africans in our country. Fourthly, we have no choice but to step up the fight against corruption and state capture. And fifthly, we need to strengthen the capacity of the state to address the needs of our people. Now, over the past year, we have focused our efforts on accelerating inclusive growth, increasing levels of investment, and putting in place measures to create more jobs. Last year, our economy was confronted by the reality of a technical recession. Government responded with an economic stimulus and recovery plan that helped to redirect public spending to areas with the greatest potential for growth and job creation. Our approach was not to spend our way out of economic troubles, but to set the economy on a path of recovery. We introduced a wide range of measures to ignite economic activity, to restore investor confidence, to support employment and address the urgent challenges that affect the lives of vulnerable members of our society. We are pleased to report that significant progress has been made in restoring policy certainty in a number of areas. In mining regulation, we have gone a long way to restore policy certainty, and the miners, mine owners are pleased with the progress we have made in this regard. The visa regime is another area which we needed to pay attention to. Much work has been done, great progress has been recorded, and we continue to work with the players in that sector, tourism and others, to ensure that we do exactly what will increase our acceptability by tourists to come to our country. We've crafted the path towards mobile spectrum allocation, and we are reviewing port, rail, and electricity prices. We also began the process of stabilizing as well as supporting 57 municipalities where over 10,000 municipal infrastructure projects are currently being implemented. The focus was placed on revamping industrial parks in townships and in rural areas, has brought about discernible change as industrial parks that have been lying idle are becoming productive again. We have so far completed the revitalization of 10 out of 16 identified industrial parks in places such as Botshabelo, Putadichaba, Garankuwa, Isitebe, Komani, and Seshego. Many others are going to follow. The levels of growth that we need to make significant gains in job creation will not be possible without massive new investment. The inaugural South African Investment Conference in October last year provided great impetus to our drive to mobilize 1.3 trillion rand in investment over 5 years. The investment conference, held just after 5 months of having come up with this idea, attracted around 300 billion in investment pledges from South African as well as in international companies. A huge success indeed. There was also significant increase in foreign direct investment last year. In 2017, we recorded an inflow of foreign direct investment amounting to 17 billion rand. Official data shows that just in the first 3 quarters of 2018, there was an inflow of 70 billion rand into South Africa. Now, this is a phenomenal achievement compared to the low level of investment in the previous years. Our investment envoys, Trevor Manuel, Kebisi Jonas, Pumzile Langeni, and Jaco Marie, as well as Invest South Africa, are closely monitoring the status of the investments announced at the investment conference to prove that our investment conference was not just a talk shop where empty promises were made. As we speak, projects to the value of 187 billion rand are being implemented, and projects worth another 26 billion are in the pre-implementation phase. That is progress. Now, drawing on the valuable lessons we have learned through a more focused effort and through the improvements we are making in the business environment, we aim to raise even more investment this year. We will be identifying the sectors and the firms we want and need in South Africa and actively attract investors. Based on our experiences over the past year, and to build on the momentum that we have achieved, we will host the South African Investment Conference again this year. It is our intention that the investment we generate should be spread in projects throughout the breadth and the length of our country. In this regard, I have asked our provincial governments to identify investable projects and ensure that we build provincial investment books for each of our 9 provinces to present to potential investors. One of our provinces has already done that, and that's KwaZulu-Natal, and we're working on others to do precisely the same. Now, following on our successful investment conference, a group of South African business leaders, moved by the spirit of Tumamina, initiated what they called the Public-Private Growth Initiative. And they came to see me, working with Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and they said, President, we want you to allow us to embark on this initiative, because through this initiative, we want to mobilize investments in various sectors of the South African economy. They have already identified 19 sectors and are working with 19 sectors of our economy, from mining to renewable energy, from manufacturing to agriculture. These industries expect to substantially expand investment over the next 5 years and create a vast number of new jobs, especially if we can enhance demand for local goods and ensure that the environment in our country continues to be strengthened and improve the conditions for doing business. As part of our ongoing work to remove constraints to greater investment, we have established a team from the Presidency, Invest South Africa, National Treasury, and the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation that will address the policy, legal, regulatory, and administrative barriers that frustrate investors. This is an important aspect of our work to improve the ease of doing business in South Africa, which is essential to attracting investment. This team will report progress to Cabinet on a monthly basis. Now, the World Bank's annual Doing Business report currently puts South Africa number 82 out of 190 countries that they have tracked with regard to being able to do business in an efficient way. we have set ourselves the target of being amongst the top 50 global performers within the next 3 years. And we are going to get there. It has long been recognized that one of the constraints that inhibit the growth of our economy is the high level of economic concentration. The structure of our economy was designed to keep the assets of our nation in a few hands. This has stifled growth and enterprise and has to a large extent kept many South Africans, particularly young South African entrepreneurs, as well as small, medium enterprises, out of the economy and have confined them to the margins, to the townships, to the rural areas. As part of our effort to increase investment and to foster greater inclusion and create more opportunities, I will soon sign into law the Competition Amendment Bill. Now, the Competition Amendment Bill will give the competition authorities the ability to address this problem, but more importantly, it will also help in opening up new opportunities for many South Africans to enter various sectors of the economy and to compete with current players who have tended to monopolize certain sectors of our economy and compete on an equal footing. That is what we want to see. Now, to stimulate growth in the economy, to build more businesses and employ more people, we need to find new and larger markets for our goods and services. We will therefore be focusing greater attention on expanding exports. In line with the Job Summit commitments, we will focus on the export of manufactured goods and trade in services such as business process outsourcing and the remote delivery of medical services. We will also be looking at establishing special economic zones that will be dedicated to producing specific types of products, for instance, such as clothing and textiles, which are much needed in a number of places in our country. To improve the competitiveness of our exports, we will complete the studies that have begun on reducing the costs of electricity, trade, communications, transport, and other costs. We will focus on raising the sophistication of our exports and move up the value chain so that our country begins to produce really good quality products that are much needed in many places of the world and particularly on our continent. The agreement on the establishment of the African Continental Free Trade Area offers our country, and indeed a number of other countries on the continent, great opportunities. But for us, it offers us, as South Africans, a path of investment-led trade, and it also offers the possibility to work with other countries to develop our own industrial capacity. The agreement will see the creation of a huge market of over 1 billion people with a combined GDP of approximately $3.3 trillion. Alongside a focus on exports, we will pursue measures to increase local demand through, amongst other things, increasing the proportion of local goods and services procured both by government and the private sector. Increasing local demand, Madam Speaker, and reducing the consumption of imports is important because it increases the opportunities for producers within South Africa to serve a growing market. Through this, we will intensify the Buy South Africa program. Now, given the key role that small businesses play in stimulating economic activity, as well as employment, and in advancing broad-based Black economic empowerment, we are focusing this year on significantly expanding our small business incubation program. The incubation program provides budding entrepreneurs with a number of services, some of which are providing them with space, infrastructure, shared services, access to specialized knowledge, market linkages. It also provides them with training in the use of new technologies, but it also assists them to access finance. The incubation program currently consists of a network of 51 technology business incubators, 10 enterprise supplier development incubators, and 14 rapid youth incubators. And as part of the expansion of this program, township digital hubs will be established initially in 4 provinces, with more to follow later. And we expect that these hubs will provide much needed entrepreneurial service to small and medium enterprises in the rural areas and the townships, but more especially to young people who want to start their own businesses. And there are many of those in South Africa. Our greatest challenge is to create jobs for the unemployed of today, while preparing workers for jobs of tomorrow. The Presidential Jobs Summit last year resulted in concrete agreements between organized labor, business, community, and government. These agreements, which are now being implemented by social partners, aim to create 274,000 additional direct jobs every year. And this is apart from the normal jobs that the economy and businesses will be creating of their own volition. We are now on the cusp of seeing more jobs being created in our economy. We have come up with great plans. We've also crafted a number of wonderful platforms and initiatives through which we continue to draw young people in far greater numbers into productive economic activity through initiatives such as the Employment Tax Incentive. Now, this incentive will be extended for another 10 years because we have seen how beneficial it is to getting young people to get into the job situation. In addition, we have launched the Youth Employment Service, which is placing unemployed youth in paid internships in companies across the economy. We call on all companies, both big, small, to participate in this initiative and thereby contribute not only to building their businesses, but also to building the economy and fostering social cohesion. Progress is being made in areas of installation, repair, maintenance jobs, digital, tech jobs like coding, data analytics, as well as global business services. These enable us to absorb more young people, especially those exiting schools and colleges and those not in any education, training, or employment. They help us to bring them into the productive economic sector and further work opportunities. As government, we have decided that the requirement for work experience at every level in state institutions will be done away with. Now, our young people need to be given real head starts in the world of work. They should not face barriers and hindrances when they seek work. We must open the channels for them to get jobs. We will be focusing our attention, our policies, and our programs on the key parts of the economy that are labor-intensive. And these include agriculture, tourism, and the ocean economy. The potential of agriculture in South Africa for job creation and economic growth still remains largely underdeveloped. South Africa still has large areas of underutilized or unproductive land. There are around 250,000 small emerging farmers in our country who are working the land, and they are the people who need support the most to fully develop their farming enterprises and businesses. And they are the ones we are going to focus on. Agricultural exports are an important source of revenue for our economy, and developing our agricultural sector is key to enhancing our food security and also for attracting investment. We are fortunate to have an agricultural sector that is well developed, resilient, and diversified. But we are also unfortunate to have an agricultural sector that was devastated by the apartheid period. We intend to use this developed sector as a solid foundation to help develop agriculture in our country for the benefit of all. Through an accelerated program of land reform, we will work to expand our agricultural output and promote economic inclusion. Our policy and legislative interventions will ensure that more land is made available for agriculture, industrial development, as well as human settlements. I wish to commend the many South Africans who participated in the work of the Constitutional Review Committee in the dialogue that ensued through the length and the breadth of our country on the issue of land reform. I applaud the members of the Constitutional Review Committee for remaining focused throughout this period and for sifting through the submissions that were made by ordinary South Africans and their organizations. Now, we will support the work of the Constitutional Review Committee that has been tasked with a review of Section 25 of the Constitution to unambiguously set out provisions for the expropriation of land without compensation. That we will do. Alongside this constitutional review process, we tasked Deputy President David Mabuza to lead the Interministerial Committee on Land Reform to fast-track land reform. Now, fantastic work has really been done through the Interministerial Committee, an advisory panel of experts headed by Dr. Vuyo Matlati, established to advise government on its land reform program, is expected to table the report by the end of March in 2019. Now, as part of accelerating land reform, we have identified land parcels that are owned by the state for redistribution. Strategically located land will be released to address human settlements needs in urban and peri-urban areas. As part of the stimulus package in agriculture, we have invested significantly in comprehensive farmer development support to ensure that restituted and communal land is productively utilized. We will continue to prioritize targeted skills development and capacity building programs for smallholder and emerging black farmers. In the coming year, we will continue to focus on high-value agricultural products with export potential such as our fruit, our wine, our vegetable industries, as well as poultry and red meat. During SONA last year, we spoke at length about the huge potential that exists for the expansion of the tourism sector. Our concerted efforts that have been ongoing to market South Africa as a prime destination for tourists have yielded positive results, with significant annual growth in the number of foreign visitors. In the last year, we had 10 million tourists who came to our country, which is a huge increase. We intend to raise this to 21 million by 2030, targeting, amongst others, the largest and the fastest growing markets of India and China, as well as strong markets of our own continent. In addition to direct jobs, this export industry could generate as many as 2 million more jobs in food and agriculture, in construction, in transport, retail, and the creative and cultural industries by 2030. We will deepen the partnership between government and business to realize this vision. Our highest priority this year will be on the introduction of a world-class e-visa regime. This, combined with enhanced destination marketing and measures to strengthen tourism safety, will create the conditions for the growth we envisage and the jobs and opportunities that will follow. Our beautiful country, South Africa, has one of the longest coastlines, spanning 3,000 kilometers around the contours of our country from the east to the west. Our mere positioning as a country means we can harness the potential of our oceans to grow our economy. Now, since the Operation Phakisa on the oceans economy in 2014, we have secured investments of nearly 30 billion rand, and in the process, we have created 7,000 direct jobs. The investments have been mainly in infrastructure development, marine, manufacturing, aquaculture, and the oil and gas sector. The expected investment in the oceans economy over the next 5 years is estimated at 3.8 billion rand by government and 65 billion by the private sector. Now, these investments are expected to create over 100,000 direct jobs and more than 250,000 indirect jobs. Last night, I received a call from Minister Mantashe, Gwede Mantashe, when he told me that the oil giant Total would be making a big announcement today about a new world-class oil and gas discovery off the coast of South Africa. Now, whether you like it or not, we were extremely encouraged by the report this morning about the Brulpanda block in the Onteniqua Basin, which some have described as a catalytic find. This could well be a game changer for our country and will have significant consequences for our country's energy security. Now, we are now facing what could be a true game changer, which we have been yearning for many years. This could well be that moment. We congratulate Total and its various partners and wish them well in their endeavors. Government will continue to develop legislation for the sector so that it is properly regulated for the interests of all South Africans. That is important because we want to have this sector, which could yield enormous benefits for our country, as it has done for a number of other countries, to be properly managed, to be properly regulated. Over the past 5 years, we've made significant progress with the provision of infrastructure. More than 1.3 trillion rand has been invested to build hundreds of schools and two new universities. It's been invested to build hundreds of thousands of new homes, to electrify more than 1 million homes, to generate new electricity, and to expand public transport. These infrastructure investments also helped to grow our economy and to create many new jobs in construction and other sectors. Infrastructure development has been the flywheel of the engine of our economy and has yielded tremendous benefits for the country. We know that we must do more in the infrastructure space. Our infrastructure development has slowed down over the years for a whole number of reasons. We have also realized that our infrastructure provision is far too fragmented between the different spheres of government. It does not fully integrate new housing development with economic opportunities and with the building of dams, water, pipelines, schools, and other amenities. Cabinet has adopted a new infrastructure implementation model to address these problems. It will be underpinned by the new infrastructure fund that we announced last year in September. Government has committed to contribute 100 billion into the infrastructure fund over a 10-year period and use this as leverage financing from the private sector and developmental finance institutions. As a first step, and let me say here, as soon as the infrastructure fund idea was flighted, a number of institutions, some of them long-term managers of money, have said to us, this for them is precisely what they've been looking for, to come in and invest in infrastructure projects along with government. So I think we're onto something good. As a first step, we will expand projects that are already underway, such as student accommodation, particularly at our TVET colleges and our universities. Through this, we plan to do things differently, starting with deeper partnerships with our communities in the planning and building and maintenance of infrastructure, just as we did with the Vaal River, where the SANDF intervened to address sewage crisis. We will call on the capabilities of the state as well as the private sector to address infrastructure challenges. We will strengthen the technical capacity in government to ensure that projects move faster, building a pool of engineers, project managers, spatial planners, and quantity surveyors. The telecommunications sector represents vast potential for boosting economic growth. The Minister of Communications will shortly be issuing policy directing to ICASA for the licensing of a high-speed radio frequency spectrum. As a water-scarce country, We are confronting water crises in many parts of the country. We are developing a comprehensive integrated national plan that will address water shortages, that will also address aging infrastructure and poor project implementation. We are urgently establishing an intergovernmental rapid response technical team reinforced by professionals to intervene in areas which are experiencing severe water problems. In one of these areas, in Guyana, for instance, extensive work is currently underway to get water to the residents in the immediate term through the repair of boreholes and then through the rapid provision of proper infrastructure. The safety of our learners in schools is critical for creating a healthy learning environment. We recall with deep sadness the tragic deaths of Michael Komape, who drowned in a pit toilet at Mahlo Dumela Primary School in Limpopo in 2014, and Lumka Mketwa from Luna Junior Primary School in the Eastern Cape, who lost her life in March last year. The Minister of Basic Education immediately acted on the request from the presidency and conducted an audit last year which found that nearly 4,000 schools still have inappropriate sanitation facilities. Given the scale and urgency of the problem, we launched the SAFE initiative in August last year, through which we mobilized all available resources, including pledges from the business sector, from strategic partners, and the building industry to replace all unsafe toilets in public schools. Now, since we launched this project, 699 schools have been provided with safe, appropriate sanitation. And a further 1,150 schools are either in planning or design or construction phase. We are determined to eradicate unsafe and inappropriate sanitation facilities within the next 3 years. Watch this space. This is an outstanding example of collaboration between government as well as business. Business which responded with urgency to the need that impacts on the rights of South African children to a safe and dignified education provision. We are making important progress in restoring the integrity and capacity of our state-owned enterprises. To restore proper corporate governance, new boards with credible, appropriately experienced and ethical directors have been appointed at Eskom, Denel, Transnet, Safcol, PRASA, and SA Express. We have established the Presidential SOE Council, which will provide political oversight and strategic management in order to reform, to reposition, and revitalize state-owned enterprises so that they can play the role that they were meant to. We want our SOEs to be fully self-sufficient and be able to fulfill their developmental and economic role. Where SOEs are not able to raise sufficient financing from banks, from capital markets, from developmental finance institutions, or from the fiscus, we will need to explore other mechanisms. Mechanisms such as strategic equity partnerships, or even selling off non-strategic assets. As we do this, we will not support any measures that in any form dispose of assets of the state that are strategic to the well-being of the economy and the people of South Africa. We have the task and the responsibility to safeguard, as well as to build and sustain those key institutions for future generations. We have sought credible plans from boards to put in place the right skills and expertise to manage these companies so that we can shift the focus from immediate stability to long-term sustainability. We also seek to build a pragmatic and cooperative relationship between government, organized labor, and private sector stakeholders, where we can jointly determine a strategic path for SOEs to create jobs, enable inclusive growth, and become operationally and financially sustainable. Security of energy supply in our country is an absolute imperative. Our electricity company, Eskom, is in crisis, and the risks it poses to South Africa are great. It could severely damage our economic and social development ambitions. We need to take bold decisions and decisive action when it comes to Eskom. The consequences may be painful, but they will be even more devastating if we delay taking action. Now, in responding to this crisis, we are informed by the need to minimize any adverse economic cost to the consumer as well as to the taxpayer. As we address the challenges that face Eskom, we will ensure that there is meaningful consultation and dialogue with all the key stakeholders. We will lead a process with labor, Eskom, and other stakeholders to work out the details of what we call a just transition and proper, credible, and sustainable plans that will address the needs of all those who may be affected. As we address the challenges that face Eskom, we also need to safeguard our national fiscal framework. We also need to achieve a positive impact on our sovereign credit rating and pay attention to the rights and the obligations of Eskom's funders. Eskom has come up with a 9-point turnaround plan, which we support and want to see implemented. In line with this plan, Eskom will need to take urgent steps to significantly reduce its costs. It will need more revenue through an affordable tariff process. We need to take steps to reduce municipal non-payment and confront the culture of non-payment that exists in some communities. Now, this culture of non-payment has spread throughout the country, and we would like to call on all South Africans that it is imperative that all those who use electricity, over and above the free basic electricity that is provided, that they should pay for the electricity that they use. Government will support Eskom's balance sheet, and the Minister of Finance will provide further details on this in the budget speech in a few days. This we will do because it is an imperative that we should embark on this path without burdening the fiscus with unmanageable debt. To ensure the credibility of the turnaround plan and to avoid a similar fiscal crisis in a few years' time, Eskom will need to develop a new business model. This business model needs to take into account the root causes of its current crisis and the profound international and local changes in the relative costs and market penetration of energy sources, especially the new technologies that are coming up. It needs to take into account the role that Eskom itself should play in generating energy from the new technologies, to bring credibility to the turnaround and to position South Africa's power sector for the future. We shall immediately embark on a process of establishing 3 separate entities: generation, transmission, and distribution under Eskom Holdings. This will ensure that we isolate costs and give responsibility to each appropriate entity. This will also enable Eskom to be able to raise funding for its various operations much easily from funders and the market. Of particular and immediate importance is the entity to manage an independent state-owned transmission grid combined with the systems operator and power planning, procurement, and buying functions. It is imperative that we undertake these measures without any further delay to stabilize Eskom's finances, to ensure security of electricity for all South Africans, to ensure that we establish the basis for Eskom's long-term sustainability. At the center of all our efforts to achieve higher and more equitable growth, to draw young people into employment and to prepare our country for the digital age, there must be the prioritization of education and the development of skills. With over 700,000 children accessing early childhood education in the last financial year, we have established a firm foundation for a comprehensive ECD program that is an integral part of the education system. This year, we will migrate responsibility for early childhood development centers from social development to basic education. And we will proceed with the process towards 2 years of compulsory early childhood development for all children before they go to grade 1. And this we are able to do not as a pipe dream, but preparations have already been put in place and we are ready for this to take off. Another critical priority is to substantially improve reading comprehension in the first years of school. This is essential in equipping children to succeed in education, in work, and in life. And it is possibly the single most important factor in overcoming poverty, unemployment, and inequality. The department's early grade test reading studies have demonstrated the impact that a dedicated package of reading resources, expert reading coaches, and lessons plans can have on reading outcomes. We will be substantially expanding the availability of these early reading resources across the foundation phase of schooling. Over the next 6 years, we will provide every child in school in South Africa with digital workbooks and textbooks on a tablet device. And we will start with those wonderful schools that have been historically most disadvantaged, And the schools that are located in the poorest communities, including multi-grade, multi-phase, farm and rural schools. Already, as many of us will know, already 90% of the textbooks in high enrollment subjects across all grades and all workbooks have been digitized. There's quite a lot of excitement that this has generated. It looks like the members of the assembly here are looking forward to getting tablets themselves. In line with our framework for skills for a changing world, we are expanding the training of both educators and learners to respond to emerging technologies, including the Internet of Things, robotics, and artificial intelligence.
Can we have some order, honorable members? Order. Please proceed, Honorable President.
Speaker, we're just concerned about plagiarism, but we'll deal with it later on.
Several new technology subjects and specializations will be introduced, including technical mathematics, technical sciences, maritime sciences, aviation studies, mining sciences, and aquaponics. Now, those are wonderful subjects that are going to be introduced. To expand participation in the technical streams, several ordinary public schools will be transformed into technical high schools. Now, anecdotally, I can say that the Minister of Basic Education, Ms. Angie Motshekga, reports that as these technical high schools have been opening, the subscription by young people has just shot up, showing and demonstrating that our young people are hungry for technical education, and that is what we are going to offer them. In line with government's commitment to the right of access to higher education for the poor, last year we introduced free higher education for qualifying first-year students. Thanks to this initiative, links have been re-established with all institutions, and institution heads and student leaders have played a critical role in communicating with students. The scheme is being phased in over a 5-year period until all undergraduate students who qualify in terms of the criteria can actually benefit. Now, stabilizing the business processes of NSFAS will also be a priority in the coming year so that it is properly capacitated to carry out its critical role in supporting eligible students. We are concerned about developments on some campuses right now this week, especially with regard to reports of violence and intimidation. Of particular concern is the tragic death of Mlungisi Madonsela, a student at the Durban University of Technology. We extend our deepest condolences to his family and call on law enforcement agencies to thoroughly investigate this incident. And we call on student representatives and university authorities to work together to find solutions to the challenges that students are facing. Minister Pandor is working persistently to address precisely this problem. We will give effect to our commitment to build human settlements in well-located areas that bring together economic opportunities and all the services and amenities that people need. The Housing Development Agency will construct an additional 500,000 housing units in the next 5 years, and an amount of 30 billion rand will be provided to our municipalities and provinces to enable them to fulfill their respective mandates. However, if we are to effectively address the substantial housing backlog in our country, we need to develop different models of financing for human settlements. It is for this reason that we are establishing a Human Settlements Development Bank that will leverage both public and private sector financing to aid in housing delivery. We will also be expanding the People's Housing Program, where households are allocated service stands to build their own houses, either individually or through community-led housing. Now, South Africa has one of the most comprehensive and far-reaching social security nets in the world, providing a buffer between poor households and abject poverty. Every month, 17.5 million social grants are provided to South Africans. The Department of Social Development is to be commended for having honored the Constitutional Court's directive for phasing out the services of cash pay master services. To date, the majority of grant beneficiaries have been successfully migrated to the South African Post Office and to old SASSA cards, and the old SASSA cards have been replaced by the new ones. We have made significant progress in devising a comprehensive social security strategy through NEDLAC. The reforms focus on achieving comprehensive social security and retirement reform that is affordable and appropriate for all South Africans. Now, with the assistance of the National Planning Commission, we reached consensus on the reforms that include the National Social Security Fund, institutional arrangements, regulatory reforms, improved unemployment benefits, improved social assistance coverage, and active labor market policies for citizens between 18 and 59 years. We will now incorporate this consensus agreement into a policy framework to guide implementation. This year, we will take a significant step towards universal access to quality health care for all South Africans. After extensive consultation, the National Health Insurance Bill will soon be ready for submission to Parliament. The NHI will enable South Africans to receive free services at the point of care in public and private quality accredited health facilities. By applying the principle of solidarity and cross-subsidization, we aim to reduce inequality in access to health care. Now, this is based on a very straightforward concept that is spreading throughout the world, that those who are more financially capable should help to subsidize the less capable. The young must subsidize the old. The healthy must also subsidize the sick. This is a concept that's spreading throughout the world. Realizing the magnitude of the challenges of healthcare, we have established an NHI and Quality Improvement War Room in the Presidency, consisting of various key departments to address the crisis in the public health system while preparing for the implementation of the NHI. We have a funded National Quality Health Improvement Plan to improve every clinic and hospital that will be contracted by the NHI. By introducing the NHI together with a multi-pronged quality improvement program for public health facilities, we are working towards a massive change in the healthcare experience of South Africans. While we have made progress since 1994 in bringing down certain categories of serious crime, communities across our country are still plagued by gangsterism and violence. As part of our concerted effort to make our country safer and more secure, the community policing strategy was launched in October last year. The strategy essentially focuses on building partnership between communities and the police, making more resources available for policing, and better communication between the police and communities about crime prevention strategies. This will enable the policemen and women of our country to become more proactive in addressing crime and broader public safety concerns. In addition, we are strengthening the functioning of various specialized units, such as the Family Violence, Child Protection, Sexual Offenses units, and improving our administrative and record keeping. The South African Police Service has embarked on a restructuring process to shift more policing resources to the local level. Violence against women and children has reached epidemic proportions in our country. Every day, South African women are faced with discrimination, they are faced with abuse, with violence, and even death. And this often happens at the hands of those closest to them. Over the last year, we have started to address this scourge in a more serious and coordinated fashion. At the Presidential Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Summit, women from all walks of life came together with government and civil society, and they came together to outline a roadmap to end gender-based violence in our country and to improve coordination of planning and to establish a commitment to resourcing and also to make sure that there is accountability. Work is underway to implement the decisions of the summit, including preparing the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence. This year, we will work with our partners in civil society to implement the decisions of the National Summit on Gender-Based Violence. We are expanding and dedicating more funds to places of support, such as the Tutuzela Care Centers and the Khuseleka Care Centers as well. We have been working to ensure the better functioning of sexual offenses courts. We will improve the quality of services in shelters and ensure they also accommodate members of the LGBTIQI+ community. We will strengthen the National Healthline Center that supports women who experience gender-based violence and ensure that it is functional. We have listened to the call by the women of our country to make funds available to combat gender-based violence and to have allocated funding in the current budget to support the decisions taken at the summit. This we shall do. Government will lead the campaign to include men and boys as active champions in the struggle against gender-based violence. Ending gender-based violence is an urgent national priority that requires the mobilization of all South Africans and the involvement of all our institutions. South Africa has extremely high levels of substance abuse, which feeds crime and violence against women and children. It deepens poverty and causes great hardships and pain for families. As government, we continue to roll out interventions to address social ills tearing our communities apart, such as alcoholism and substance abuse. Knowing as we do that there are strong linkages between substance abuse, drug trafficking, crime, and insecurity in communities, we are focusing on tackling this program at its source through prevention programs targeting vulnerable persons and especially our youth. We are resolute that all taverns, all shebeens, and liquor outlets that are near school premises must be shut down. We recognize, as do all South Africans, that our greatest efforts to end poverty, unemployment, and inequality will achieve little unless we tackle state capture and corruption in all its manifestations and in all areas of public life. The action we take now to end corruption and to hold those responsible to account will determine the pace and the trajectory of the radical social and economic transformation we seek. The revelations emerging from the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into State Capture and other commissions are deeply disturbing, for they reveal a breadth and depth of criminal wrongdoing that challenges the very foundations of our democratic state. Now, we commend these commissions for the work that they are doing. And some of them are doing very important work. And some of them are doing very important work under difficult and challenging circumstances to uncover the truth. Now, what is important is that the truth must be revealed. These commissions need to be able to do their work without any hindrance, and we call on all those who are in a position to assist them in their investigations to make themselves available. While these commissions will in time make findings and recommendations in line with their mandates, evidence of criminal activity that emerges must be evaluated by the criminal justice system. Where there is a basis to prosecute, prosecutions must follow swiftly. Now, and stolen public funds must be recovered urgently without any fail. Now, to this end, we have agreed with the new National Director of Public Prosecutions.
Order, members. Order. Can we proceed, please?
Honorable Speaker.
Now, to this end,
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable President, please. Is that a point of order, Honorable Malema?
No, Tabama Kwetla's clapping hands here. This guy is
Thank
going
you,
to
sir.
jail. He thinks we're playing.
Honorable Malema, that was not a point of order. Honorable Tabang, don't clap hands. Please proceed, Mr. President.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of Council of Provinces, to this end, we have agreed with the new National Director of Public Prosecutions that there is an urgent need to establish in the office of the NDPP an investigating directorate dealing with serious corruption and associated offenses in accordance with Section 7 of the NPA Act. Now, I will soon be promulgating a proclamation that will set out the specific terms of reference of the directorate. In broad terms, the directorate will focus on the evidence that has emerged from the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into state capture, other commissions, and disciplinary inquiries. It will identify priority cases to investigate and prosecute, and will recover assets identified to the proceeds of corruption. The directorate will bring together a range of investigatory and prosecutorial capacity from within government and in the private sector under an investigating director reporting to the NDPP. The NDPP, therefore, will be acting, and I'd like this to be very clear, will be acting in terms of the law, in terms of the rule of our law, without any favor, without any prejudice. She will execute her tasks that are enshrined in our Constitution. In the longer term, we will work with the NPA and other agencies of law enforcement to develop more enduring solutions that will strengthen the capacity of the criminal justice system to deal with corruption. Fellow South Africans, as we grapple with the challenges of our recent past, and as we deepen our efforts to overcome the grave injustices of centuries, it is essential that we do so with our eyes firmly fixed on the future. The world we now inhabit is changing at a pace and in a manner that is unprecedented in human history. Revolutionary advances in technology are shaping the way people work and the way they live. They are transforming the way people relate to each other, the way societies function, and the way they govern and governed. The devastating effects of global warming on our climate are already being felt, with extreme weather conditions damaging livelihoods, communities, and economies. As a young nation, only 25 years into our democracy, we are faced with a stark choice. It is a choice between being overtaken by technological change or a choice of harnessing it to serve our developmental aspirations. It is a choice between entrenching inequality or creating shared prosperity through innovation. Unless we adapt, unless we understand the nature of the profound change that is shaping our world, and unless we readily embrace the opportunities it presents, the promise of our nation's birth will forever remain unfulfilled. Today, we choose to be a nation that is reaching into the future. In doing so, we are building on a platform of extraordinary scientific achievement. The successful construction in our own very country, in the Northern Cape, of the Meerkat telescope, the world's largest and most sensitive radio telescope, and the development of the square kilometer array has enabled South Africa to develop capabilities in areas such as space observation, advanced engineering, and supercomputing. These skills These skills and capabilities are being used to build what they call the HERA, a radio telescope that is designed to detect for the very first time in the history of the world the distinctive radio signal from the very first stars and galaxies that formed early in the life of the universe. It is being done here in South Africa. This is not merely about advancing human understanding of the origins of the universe. It is about responding to the challenges that face South Africans now and into the future. It is about developing the technology and capabilities that will build a dynamic, competitive economy that creates decent and sustainable jobs. It is about enhanced food security, better disease management, and cheaper, cleaner, and more efficient energy. It is about smart human settlements and social development solutions built around people's needs and preferences. It is about smarter, more responsive, and more effective governance. To ensure that we effectively and with great urgency harness these technologies, I have appointed a presidential commission on the fourth industrial revolution. This commission is comprised of eminent persons drawn from different sectors of society. The commission will serve as a national overarching advisory mechanism on digital transformation. Now, this is about preparing our country for the future. It will identify this commission and recommend policies and strategies and plans that will position South Africa as a global competitive player within the digital revolution space. Now, building on the work we've done over the last year, we will focus also on issues that many South Africans are concerned about, strengthening the state. We have made progress in examining the size and structure of the state, and will complete this work by the end of this administration. We only have a few months to go, and the life of this administration comes to an end, and boom, we will have a reconfigured state in the next administration. Now, as we look forward to this wonderful, brave future, we invite all South Africans who would wish to do so to make suggestions on how we can better configure our government to serve the needs and the interests of the people of our country. In improving the capabilities of public servants, the National School of Government is introducing a suite of compulsory courses covering areas like ethics and anti-corruption. We will process the operationalization of Section 8 of the Public Administration Management Act. This provision will see the imposition of harsher penalties, including fines and prison sentences for officials that transgress these rules. South Africa has this year taken our non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. We will use this position to advance peace on our continent and across the globe, taking forward Nelson Mandela's vision of a peaceful, stable, and just world. In a few months' time, South Africa will go to the polls for the 6th time in our democracy to vote for national and provincial government. This is an opportunity for our people to exercise their hard-won right to determine the direction of this country. I have engage with the Independent Electoral Commission, as well as our various premiers, and also in all the provinces, and intend to proclaim the 8th of May 2019 as the date of the elections. We wish to remind all eligible South Africans who have not yet registered as voters.
Order. Order.
Now, we wish to remind all South Africans who have not yet registered as voters that they still have until the proclamation of the election date to register. We are a people of resilience, we are a people of great determination, and we are a people of great optimism. Despite the worst excesses of apartheid, we did not descend into vengeance when our freedom was won. Our democracy has blossomed. It has also flourished. It has been nurtured by the goodwill of the men and women of this great nation and this great land, who understood only too well at what cost our freedom was attained. But the road towards true freedom is a long one, and we have seen divisions in our society grow between black and white, rich and poor, between rural and urban, between the sexes, and between language groups and cultures. This has been most disturbing to many of us. At times, it has seemed like the milk of human kindness that allowed us to reconcile in 1994 had gone sour. But we will not surrender to the forces of pessimism and defeatism. Our society is anchored in the roots of tolerance as well as coexistence. And we stand firm, resolute, and united against all and everything that seeks to divide us or destroy our hard-won gains. They told us building a non-racial South Africa was impossible, and that we would never be able to truly heal our bitter past. Yet we weathered the storm and we are prevailing. It was the eternal optimism of the human spirit that kept hopes alive during our darkest time. It is this optimism that will carry us forward as we face a brave new future. It is a South Africa in which every man, woman, and child is provided with the opportunity and the means to make a better life for themselves. It is a South Africa ready to take advantage of the technological changes sweeping the globe to make our economy grow and create jobs for our people. It is a South Africa whose people have a vision, who have a drive and ambition, making it a hub of innovation, entrepreneurship, and enterprise. It is a South Africa that acknowledges the problems of the past, but looks firmly to the future. It is a South Africa whose leaders are bold and courageous, leaders who remain servants of the people, and for whom fulfilling their duty is the highest and the only reward. And above all, it is a South Africa of which we are all proud, of what we have achieved and where we hope to be. The task before us is formidable. Above everything else, we must get our economy working again. I call upon every South African to make this cause your own. Because when we succeed, and if we do indeed, as we must, it is the entire nation that will benefit. Now, as government, as business, as labor, as all our citizens, let us unite and embrace tomorrow. Let us grasp our collective future with both hands in the immortal words of the Freedom Charter, side by side, sparing neither strength nor courage. This task of building a better South Africa is our collective task as a nation, as the people of South Africa. And as we approach these tasks and these challenges, we should heed the word of one Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails whilst daring greatly. So that in the end, his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Close quotes. Now, what this means, we all have a role to play as individual South Africans, as faith-based organizations, as sports organizations, as trade unions, as business, as students, as academics, and all of us as South Africans, as the judiciary, as politicians, yes, as all of us, Musi Maimani, Julius Malema, Bantu Olomesa, Reverend Misha, Menier Groenewald, Themba Godi, Musiwa Lekota, Date Potlama, all of us have a role to play. Let us continue to embrace the spirit of active citizenry in line with the injunction of Tumamina in the onward march towards equality, freedom, and prosperity for all. Let us all be sent by this great country as it takes us forward to greater prosperity. Thank you very much.
We thank you, Mr. President. Re a leboga. Order. After I have adjourned the joint sitting, members and guests should please remain at their places until the procession and a member of the judiciary have left the chamber. The guests in the gallery should remain seated until the ushers indicate that the doors are indeed open. The procession, led by the Sergeant at Arms, the usher of the Blood Rock, will leave the chamber in the following order: the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the President, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the Deputy President, the Acting Secretary to Parliament. Members, this concludes the business of the day. This joint sitting is adjourned.
All right.